Hey everybody, if you sell at in-person craft fairs and you're hearing all the headlines about tariff this, tariff that, trade war, and it really has you concerned and you're trying to figure out how to navigate through this mess, then this video is for you because, well, I have some thoughts. Hey everybody, Bill here from Craft Fair Insider, and this is not a video I had scheduled to make, but I'm noticing in a lot of the Facebook groups and other places that I sort of survey for the status of the craft fair environment, if you will, and talking with other small business owners, everybody's feeling really on edge, unsure as to what all these tariffs mean and I guess how to deal with them. So although I'm not an expert, I'm not like a trade policy person, I'm going to talk to you about how I'm looking at it in terms of even my business, and hopefully that'll help sort of settle or at least give you some kind of move forward approach to dealing with all of this uncertainty is what it really comes down to. You know, these tariffs can affect your costs, your margins, especially, you know, I'm in the United States, I'm in Pennsylvania, and so not only are we having impacts here in the US, I know from watching the news, even it's making things unstable in other parts of the world as well. So I think what's important and what is difficult about people that sell at craft fairs and online is it's not like a normal business where you can at lunch in a corporate type environment or retail environment, any physical place where you're together with your coworkers, where you can whine about it, complain, talk through it. In a lot of cases, we don't have that unless we're at the craft fair, and then we can talk to other vendors, but it could be some time in between fairs for you to do that. So connecting some way online, like, you know, joining Craft Fair Insider. We have our Facebook page that is pretty new. You could just search for it, The Craft Fair Insider, and request and join that, and we can certainly help, you know, alleviate some fears or discuss further beyond just this particular video. But having that understanding that you're not alone and that other artists are also struggling in this way, misery loves company to some degree, but I think it does lighten the load a little bit on you individually. So here's kind of how I'm approaching it, because one day there's no tariffs, then they're 10%, then they're 150%, then we are levying tariffs on an island inhabited by penguins. I don't know about you, but I guess I get about half of my supplies from penguins. I think what we're used to in the craft fair world is you kind of have your schedule set year to year. You know, there are at least your key craft fairs that you attend. In a lot of cases, you sign up for the craft fair for the next year while you're at the one in the current year, or very shortly afterwards. You're submitting your applications in months in advance. So it's all about planning for us. In the old world, that was easy to do. There wasn't much of a change. Yes, there was inflation and things are slowly getting more and more expensive. And then we always have to make decisions about whether or not to increase our prices, which, you know, at an annual basis, everybody should always be looking at their prices to determine where they are and if any adjustments need to be made. So that's normal. What really I think is difficult in this case is it keeps changing. So you can't plan for what you can't change. One thing that I've learned over time, maybe not always apply personally, but you can only control what you can control. And so, yes, there's a possibility that our component prices are going to increase, our packaging may increase, possible if, maybe. I think it's important for us to just stay informed and not react to headlines, because we all have been jumping on headlines. Headlines don't actually change anything. Now, if you want to get crazy, you could set yourself up like a Google alert for tariffs and small businesses, that kind of combination, to see what has actually been implemented. And then once you know for sure what the actual change is, and it is implemented and we're being charged those amounts, then you can much more easily plan for and react to what those tariffs are. That doesn't mean you can't do anything now. You can certainly prep, become well informed. If you really haven't dug into, where your supplies come from. So let me give you a couple examples for me personally. I know that I purchase in bulk, wholesale, my sequins from somebody that is in the United States. But those items that they sell, they import from China, India, Vietnam in some cases. There's a bunch of places that they come in from. So I have to know what my supply chain is. The other thing, I have a vendor, or not a vendor, I have a wholesaler that I buy my beads from. They're in Canada. They import their products from the Czech Republic into Canada. I buy them from Canada, and then they come over. So for the longest time, my orders generally were under $800. So they came in de minimis, and I didn't have to pay tariffs, taxes, VAT, whatever you want to call it, but it was not something that was charged to me because of my dollar amounts. So just take a look at what you get and where you get it from, so you at least know what percentage comes from China, what percentage comes from India, what percentage comes from other places, right? That's going to be your first step right there. I know a lot of people say, just buy in the U.S., buy made in the USA. For me, no one makes sequins in the United States. They all come from somewhere else in the world. And I do not see anyone in the U.S. racing to open a sequin making factory in the United States. If they did, would I buy from them? I'd look at the price, I'd look at the quality, and I make a decision from there. I wouldn't be opposed to it, but it has to be an informed decision. If you're able to diversify your suppliers at all, I think you always want a backup. And in some cases, you want a backup of your backup. And that could just be normal, like they're out of stock. You have to know where to go second or third in any case. So if you map out where things are coming from, make sure that you have your backup suppliers. And if you're able to diversify that, then fantastic. That's probably the best way to go. When you are talking with your suppliers, if it is a wholesaler or something like that, somebody that you have a contact with at the company, you can ask them, hey, what are you planning on doing with all these tariffs? Are you planning, do you have an expectation that you are going to raise your prices? They may not have an answer, but maybe they do. And then that will help you determine, what your cost of goods are, so that you know what your final price is going to be. I have some items where I sell supplies on my website for ornament making, and some of them I have I guess I would call it an amount of money, a markup that I'm comfortable with, and I do have a little bit of wiggle room. So even if they do increase their prices, depending on how much that is, I may absorb part of it and just kind of go from there. The other thing that I did do is I looked at what my estimations are going to be for the rest of the year. Because sometimes I buy a little bit a couple times throughout the year. I actually went ahead and did more bulk orders and sort of guesstimated what I need for the rest of the year and into the next year. Things like shipping supplies, tape, they're not going to go bad if you send things in person. Bags, you can have stacks and stacks of bags that you have bought now, and just slowly over time you start depleting, and then we'll see what happens in a couple years. So the bulk purchase also could possibly get you a lower per bag item or per packaging item. So that could end up being a benefit for you if you're able to afford that upfront cost. I know not everybody can, but if you're able to, and you know it's something that's not going to go to waste, it's not perishable, stock up when the prices are low, and you can kind of go from there. Another thing to think about is there a different way that you can make your products? Does it have to be from brand new components? Can you begin upcycling? I think there is a lot of or there's a big trend about thrift stores and not buying new. And I don't know if it's pushback from Walmart and Target and those giant box stores that people just don't want to shop there. But thrift stores and things like that seem to be having a bit of a resurgence, and people don't think about it the same way as they used to. Like, oh, I have to go to a thrift store. Now it's like, ooh, let's go thrifting. For me, I also have, fortunately, a place called the Resource Exchange. It's in the Philadelphia area, and they are a let's call it a thrift store, but people donate supplies, fabric, buttons, sometimes furniture, things, art supplies, all of that. And then they're a nonprofit. Their whole mission is to prevent things from going to waste, to prevent things from going into the dumpster and the landfills. So it's a great mission, and you can find things really inexpensively. So look for any creative reuse areas or stores in your area, and maybe that will be a brand new opportunity for you that you can expand your business in. And you can have a section of your craftware booth that is upcycled, recycled, and people seem to really like that. The other thing you can do is, let's say you do have to raise your prices and you're at the craft fair and people are like, oh, I don't know if I want to spend that much. And I don't think we as a community of crafters do this as well as we could. Really focus on your creativity, your skill, and emphasize that that it is handmade, and talk through what your process is. Because I think if people connect with you as a person and they connect with you and your process, that's almost a story for them. So if they have an item in their home, or if they're wearing your jewelry that you made, and somebody says, oh, it's a really nice necklace, where'd you get it? Oh, let me tell you, this woman, Samantha, I saw her at this craft fair, and she does this and that and the other thing. And that's the authenticity that you want to have coming through, and that connection is also going to help with your prices. Now, there are some things that maybe unpopular opinion, that's not going to be conveyed in a tumbler, but there are certainly a lot of other things. I mean, for me personally, with my bead and sequin Christmas ornaments, I have a strong emotional, nostalgic attraction to people that remember these kinds of ornaments with their grandmother, their aunt. They might have made some of them as kids. And so when they see them, they're sort of transported in time back to that place. And in a lot of cases, talking about how I got into it, what my process is, that usually translates to a sale. And they're not as concerned necessarily about price, because you always want to have prices, different pricing tiers, and we're going to have a whole other video later on about pricing strategies and pricing your items in person versus online. I also have thoughts about that, but people will talk themselves into something that they really want. Even if it's not a need item, it becomes a need item to them, especially if they have that connection to it. So even at the higher prices, if you do end up having to increase them a little bit or a lot, depending on what you do, that could be okay. You know, I'd rather sell one item at $100 than 10 items at $10. I've heard that before, and I'll pass that one on for a while. So if you do have something like a mailing list and you're communicating with people, you don't have to, like, I'm not saying explain why, but you can let people know, hey, listen, cost of my components are going up. I'm going to be having to raise my prices in a month, 2 months, whatever time period you figure out, and say, last chance, you know, come see me, come buy online at the current low prices. They'll be increased later on this date, and then on that date you go in and you make your increases. You change your prices on all your signs at your craft fair, but give people the opportunity that know you and have supported you of getting in on the cheaper prices, because I think everybody has heard about tariffs, whether they understand it or not, and I think knowing what the impact is to everyday people is kind of important. You know, ultimately, what is really important, what I really want to get across in this video is, you do not want to make hasty decisions based off of headlines or get yourself in some kind of tailspin about everything that's going, because you're going to drive yourself crazy if you're paying attention to every single little change that might maybe possibly happen in the future, and try and follow along. Just wait for reality implementation and it to be sort of valued for not valued, but in effect for the time period. I think that's going to be the most important part. So make sure that you're not driving yourself crazy. It is okay to go online and post about how you're feeling. You're most likely going to get sort of confirmation bias of other people piling on. That can be emotionally draining and maybe not so helpful. So just focus on what you are able to control in the moment, what reality is, and make your decisions from there. When it comes to actual craft fair applications, I think I have no advice for you, unfortunately. I wish I did. I know sometimes you are, putting in your applications a year in advance. I think we're just going to, at this point, have to wait and see what happens to see what the reality is, whether people are willing to spend money when those events come. There's nothing you could do right now. So if you can't do anything, just try to be as thoughtful as you can. Maybe if you're super uncomfortable, or if you have really small margins, or you're worried about your products being overpriced or something, maybe you scale back for a year on what craft fairs you do. Maybe you do some more inexpensive ones for a year where the risk is a little bit lower to you, where it's only like $35 versus $150, because you never really know if that's going to be a good show for you or not anyway. But whatever you decide, if you have thoughts, what you're thinking, if you have advice for other people too, put it in the comments of this video. Back to that community, I think if everybody helps each other out, then all the better. But thank you for listening to the video. I do wish you all well in the year ahead, and I'm in the same boat with you, so hang in there and best of luck.